This video is brought to you by America First Insight. Help support the growing conservative movement by becoming a member today. And if you want to support this channel, you can also use the code REAL when becoming a member. Thank you and enjoy the video. As most of you probably know, many Democrats have been claiming that the Republican Party, they're collapsing right now. They're going to lose like 50 House seats next year. And in fact, 2026 is going to be the biggest blue wave in history. That's what a lot of Democrats are pushing. And let's be clear about one thing. It's entirely possible that, yes, next year could be a blue wave. I'm not denying that at all, because historical trends would tell you usually these midterms, they should be wave years, okay? But the more you look at next year's midterms, not only does it seem less and less likely that this magical blue wave bigger than 2018 is building, it's looking very unlikely that's going to happen as of now, but there is a serious chance, and I want to clear about this, this is not an official prediction of what's going to happen next year, but there is a serious possibility that next year could potentially be a mini red wave. Now, again, I'm not saying it's a final prediction or whatever, but the more you look at the data we're getting for next year, the more apparent it becomes that, hey, wait a minute, this is going to be a very unusual midterm. This is not like 2018 or 2010 where one party gains 70 House seats or whatever. That is very unlikely for either side. But really, it's looking very unlikely for the Democrats to experience even kind of a mini blue wave. I mean, look at this poll from CNBC, which, again, CNBC, they're not the best pollster, but look at this. They found that Republicans in the generic ballot, they surged 4 points after the shutdown. Yeah, CNBC, not a far-right pollster or outlet, they found the Republican Party, they are surging post-shutdown. And you average it out right now, the generic ballot for 2026 is only D plus 1.5. And really, you take out the one big outlier in Yahoo News, it's really D plus 1 for the generic ballot. That's it. Not D plus 20, not D plus 10, not even D plus 5. Right now, it is D plus 1. And compared to before the shutdown, you know, in the middle of September, D plus 3, D plus 3. For a little bit of August, it was like D plus 4. But right now, Democrats, they're not doing good at all. Like, you're telling me that this is in the middle of a shutdown, which everyone was claiming, oh, Democrats going to win the shutdown, they're going to surge in popularity. But really, the opposite is occurring. The opposite is happening where Republicans, they're actually showing, they're actually doing better off post-shutdown, which I was kind of thought, you know, with how unique this shutdown is, there was a possibility of that happening, but I didn't think it would be this quickly where it's like, oh, in a couple of weeks, it went from D plus 3, D plus 4 to within the margin of error with a D plus 1. That's it. That is huge for the GOP and really a pathetic showing for Democrats. Just go back to 2018 as a good example, okay? 2018, this massive blue wave. In October of 2017, Democrats led by roughly, what is it, okay? October 17th, they led by 9 points in the generic ballot, which was actually to the left of what the generic ballot ended up being. So in the same time frame in 2017, Democrats were up by 9%, Republicans were below 38%, Democrats were 47, 48%. Compare that to today, and Democrats, they're up by a very small margin. They're barely cracking 45%. In fact, the highest they pulled so far is 46%. That's it. There's like a cap on this. Look at this. Actually, there was a couple days in June, they were at 46.3, but look at this. It's like when they hit 46%, they're stuck there. They cannot go any higher. It really seems like that's their ceiling right now. Well, now, will that be the case next year? No, I'm not saying they're going to only get 46% of the vote. But it really seems like every time Democrats hit 46, they're stuck there. Meanwhile, Republicans, they're slowly but surely eating away at this lead. It went from D+4 to D+3 to now D+1.5. Which, even if it's D+1.5 for next year, that is pathetic for Dems. That is a smaller popular vote victory than Clinton in 2016. That is nowhere near enough to even get a small House majority. And that's the problem. The more you look at just the polling right now, the less likely 2018 is going to repeat itself. It's just not going to happen anywhere, including the approval polls, which, yeah, Trump right now is -6, but yet again, it's always the same shitty pollsters like YouGov, AP Norc, Reuters. The same shit pollsters are pushing the same crap. -24, -18, -30. It's every year. So you take those polls out of the equation, closer to like -3 or whatever. But even then, compare Trump's approval today, in the middle of October, to 2017. Middle of 2017, it was negative, what is that? Negative like 20? Yeah, -18 in the same time frame. -17, -16. Right now, it's -6. And that's with some massive outliers from the same shit pollsters that push this crap every year. So that's an 11-point swing in just the approval rating. And now you got the generic ballot swinging 8 points Republican. You have polls swinging like 5 points in a couple of weeks. It is looking less and less likely like a blue wave's gonna happen. But there's one aspect of this that nobody's talking about that, quite frankly, proves that next year, there is a good chance that not only will blue wave not happen, but there could potentially be a mini red wave. And when I say that, I'm not saying they gain 50 House seats, but it's like the generic ballot's even or whatever, and Republicans, they do just enough where they have a net gain in the House of like 10 seats or whatever. And there's really two maps I gotta point to kind of prove my point. And we've been talking about redistricting a bunch, but I don't think people really understand or really comprehend how bad this is for Dems, okay? Back in 2018, this was the map, okay? There were 180 Trump plus 10 seats, meaning in 2016, these districts in red, they voted for Trump by over 10%, by a massive margin. And of course, some of these were represented by Dems. Like, let's be clear about this, just because of Trump plus 11 or whatever, that does not mean it's gonna go Republican, okay? But it's just a good example, like a good way to illustrate it. So, Trump plus 10, there were roughly 180 seats. Clinton plus 10, 172. So yeah, there were slightly more Trump seats, obviously. When Trump won in 2016, yeah, he won more congressional districts, we get the point. And you notice there are 83 seats that are within 10% either way. So really, you could argue the yellow districts, not all of them, but a good chunk of them, they were the toss-ups for 2018. Compare that to today, and look at this. Right now, and I know we have to talk about redistricting in a second, but look at this. Republicans are at 202 for Trump plus 10 seats, while Harris, there are only 155 House seats that were within 10% back in 2024. That is a margin of nearly 50 seats. Compare that to just 8 back in 2018. That is a gap of what, like 38 House seats? 40? And on top of that, Republicans, they're already at 202. They're already at 202 House seats that voted for Trump by at least 10 points. That's a lot. That's 20 more than 2018. Democrats, they went down like 20. And of course, you only have 70 seats within 10 points. So not only is the gap significantly larger, Republicans gained way more with redistricting in Texas and Missouri, but also, you have less Democrat seats. You have less seats within even 10%, meaning there's less room for Democrats to grow. That is bad. Now, obviously, some of these states, they have not redrawn just yet, like Ohio. Like, there are 2 seats there that You could argue they may not go Trump plus 10 or whatever, but based on what we're hearing out of Ohio and Indiana, they're going to redraw. In Ohio, you're gonna get at least 2 seats, potentially 3. And that's why there's 1 seat in purple. Same with Indiana. You're for sure getting 1, maybe 2. So this could get even worse, especially if you factor in Florida. There are 4 seats in Florida that we're watching for if they're going to redraw. Which, if that happens, Republicans, when you count all of those, and like Utah, there's those 2 seats that are being redrawn, you factor in all of this. There are like 205 or 6 House seats, when you factor in Indiana, Ohio, and Florida, that are Trump plus 10 or more. At that point, Democrats, they have to run the table everywhere just to maybe get a tiny, and I mean like a 2-seat majority in the House. Yeah. Republicans, meanwhile, they gotta win a couple House seats. And a lot of them, they're very strong candidates, like Brian Fitzpatrick in Pennsylvania, Michael Lawler in New York. They have strong candidates. This is looking bad for Dems. And it could get even worse, especially in the South. Remember, the Supreme Court right now, they're looking at potentially overturning parts of the Voting Rights Act. Which, if that happens, those districts in the South, they're gone. They're going to all become like Trump plus 20 seats, and there you go. Even before we have a single competitive seat factored in, Republicans would be at like 212. With redistricting out of North Carolina, Ohio, Indiana, Florida, Texas, Missouri, and maybe places like Kansas, Nebraska. And if the VRA is overturned, maybe a place like Alabama or Mississippi. Yeah. So this map again this is using the current maps. So out of Missouri, out of Texas, even the California ones, which I'm kind of surprised about. The maps out of California, yeah, they help Democrats a little bit, but look at the amount of competitive seats here that are within 10. In these areas, they're shifting heavy to the right. So, yeah, they knocked out like 4 or 5 incumbents or whatever, but a lot of these seats are still very competitive. And again, Democrats are not going to lose all of them. And some of these seats, they're like D plus 9.8 or whatever. But you get the point that this ain't looking good. And now you're starting to hear Democrats realize that, oh shit, we screwed up in redistricting. I mean, now they're realizing them redrawing California, it set off a shitstorm in Missouri, Indiana, Ohio, North Carolina, potentially Florida, that now they're begging places like Maryland and Illinois to redraw their maps. Which, even if they get this through, which it's not going to happen, Maryland, the court's going to say no. They've always been saying no for a couple years now. But even if you get a couple more Harris plus 10 seats in Maryland, say both of them. Let's say you get a couple more safe seats in Illinois and you even flip a couple Republican ones, okay? Let's just say you get all of those, all right? In fact, let's just be nice and say, even though this is basically impossible, they somehow get every single seat in Illinois, which is not going to happen. It's at least now like D plus 20 or whatever. Well, even with that factored in, there's still a 164. Republicans, they're a 198. That is still a gap of 34 seats. And that doesn't factor in Ohio. Maybe they redraw with Cincinnati. Maybe in Indiana, they go even further. Maybe Florida, which is very likely, they redraw these 4 seats, and there you go. So even if Illinois and Maryland pull their stunt, which they can't, even if that happens, which these maps are literally impossible to do, you're still down by 40. Just if Ohio, Indiana, and Florida, they go all the way. And that doesn't even count Kansas or Nebraska, which they could still redraw and gain a couple there. Does this look like a blue wave to anybody? You could, even in a best case scenario for Dems for Illinois, Maryland, and California, you're starting 40 seats behind Republicans. This is not 2018. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, and of course, join the channel today. Godspeed to all of you.